For the most part, the president was both polite and calm to Republicans. He's a very conciliatory sort of man, and so he was, for the most part, when he stuck to his script, quite polite. But when he went off script, it got a little bit more contentious. Take a look at this clip.
I have no more campaigns to run. My only agenda, I know because I won both of them.
Looking off into the distance, smiling, and yeah, as you pointed out, the head turn really sold the joke. Probably our favorite moment, I would imagine.
Absolutely, mine for sure.
But the Republicans not as big fans.
This goes back to 2008, the Jay-Z thing in the primaries. This is like, he won 2 elections, and he is the first president since Dwight D. Eisenhower to win a majority of the popular vote. Mm-hmm. That's how historic. He's the first.
Twice, you mean?
Twice, excuse me. Yes, thank you for that. And he is the first, I believe, first Democrat since FDR to do it twice. So
first Muslim ever.
First socialist ever. First Kenyan ever.
Exactly.
So
that's a lot of firsts.
He's broken all these barriers. He should have owned that a little bit, man. I mean, roll with it.
He did there, I think, at least.
He did.
He smiled.
Totally
he didn't say, "Oh, I'm sorry."
No. Look, that as stand-up comics, I mean, that was a pro move. What he did right there. He dealt with the crowd appropriately. He milked it for the laugh with the smile. That little breath that he took in the, he knew it. That's the best to him. And of course, Republicans are getting their panties in a bunch about it. But that's what it's supposed to be. You're supposed to have moments of humanity in this thing. And for a guy who came in on hope and change, and it was so exciting. I said on my show this morning, in retrospect, it felt like we were all on drugs at that time. That rollout of Obama. And to see those little moments of that, because, well, that's what it felt like for me. Maybe I was on drugs at the time, but it
makes you remember.
It was like, oh, that's that thing. Because the rest of it, as we discussed in the previous segment, to me was just the standard stuff that we get at him. So those brief moments. And then, because you also see the fight in him. You know what I mean? You also see that moment of
willing to be combative to some extent.
Yeah. And the whining Republicans, it strikes me that the whining Republicans aren't whining about the fact that these rude jerks were
clapping that he's not
you don't
running
get
again.
to run anymore.
It's like, he's combative.
It's like he's combative.
Right.
He's not polite. Well, that's a dick move.
Guess what? That's democracy. They clapped and he responded.
Yeah. And I totally agree. Like, we have to remember that is perhaps the only line he himself wrote for the State of the Union, and it was our favorite. Maybe he should have written more. But yeah, there was more humanity and that little joke than the entirety of Joni Ernst's Republican response.
You know what he could have said there, which also would have worked and been even, is he when they started to applaud, he could have said, "Yeah, I know, which is good for you guys that I'm not going to run anymore."
Right, that should have been the follow-up after the first one.
I know, I won, so that's good for you.
I wish they had gone to John McCain to see his
Yes!
reaction, but unfortunately they chose not to. I have a feeling he probably sneered. So we do have a response from some Republicans who are not a fan of it. Understand that immediately all of the headlines about the State of the Union, that was the only thing most, especially on the right, wanted to cover. But here are some Republican politicians. Tom Cole, representative, says, probably not helpful when you rub the other guy's nose in the dirt a little bit. Look, he's allowed to take a victory lap, but he ought to be thinking about what works. He's not trying to be helpful to you.
No. And also,
really not, nor should he.
It was this guy's team that did the applause in the first place.
Exactly.
Right. So,
how helpful was that?
Yeah.
Right. Senator Ted Cruz says, if the president sticks to the tone that he chose tonight, if he sticks to anger and defiance towards the American voters, then perhaps he will veto bill after bill after bill after bill, and then in the greatest case of projection ever. But if he chooses to embrace and revel in gridlock and obstructionism, then he will be an unfortunate choice, and I hope he reconsiders.
Then he says, wait a minute, let me try that again. No, do I sense in that first sentence just a little tiny tad of angry black manism in his anger and defiance?
And
he's uppity too, I bet.
Yeah, I think I just get a little bit of that vibe in the man.
Yeah,
a little bit. Here's Senator Kelly Ayotte saying, an interesting throwaway. It was kind of like he got back in campaign mode and did that. And so that's all I make of it. Actually similar to how we responded to it.
I'm actually,
except
all right,
we liked it and she didn't.
Right. All right,
exactly.
fair enough.
My favorite response, though, was Patrick McHenry, who says, it's factually accurate. I don't know much about Patrick McHenry, but I like him a little bit more now for acknowledging that. Yes, and so I hope that after a day or two of either gloating on the side of us on the left or perhaps on the right being a little bit angry about that, we can return to a little bit of the substance, what little there was in the State of the Union. That would be nice.